we have Kathy Stull and Abigail Buck here from Regent University School of Law, and they're going to talk to you guys about different activities you can do to help boost your application. You all can go ahead and take it away.
All right, perfect. So thank you guys so much for joining in. Thank you so much for Priya for having us. We are super excited to talk to you guys. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the admissions side of law school and what that looks like and how you can build and kind of bulk up your application. Miss Kathy is going to be discussing what it's like, I guess, your resume and how to build and continue this process into internships while you're in law school and what different employers are going to be looking for while you're in law school. So you kind of have an idea of what to, you'll have an idea of what you're going to know when you get into law school, if that makes any sense. Also, I talk a little fast. So if, it becomes too much, y'all let me know. I will slow myself down as best as I possibly can. Kathy, call me out if I need to. So again, my name is Abby. I'm the Assistant Director of Law Admissions at Regent, but I also graduated from Regent Law in 2024. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of New York and South Carolina, but I'm from Tennessee. It's a whole thing. We try not to get into it, but we can discuss that later if you guys want. In addition to that, I also will be teaching sports and entertainment law this fall at Regent University at the law school and trying to build up that program. And then this past week, I launched my sports consulting business. So we've got a lot that's going on. I can't say no. So, but we can talk about all that stuff later. We're probably going to do about 20 minutes of admissions, conversation, about 20 minutes with career services and what that looks like from a law school perspective, and then open up the floor up for you guys for any questions. Does that sound good? Hopefully. Okay, great. Ms. Kathy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks, Abby. I'm Kathy Stahl. I'm the Director of Career and Alumni Services here at the law school. So I actually work with students beginning in October of their first year. One of the big things about being a law student is completing internships, externships, things like that, because we want to make sure that you're ready for when you get out into the legal world. And so we work with a lot of employers and bring them to campus or send your resume to different employers through resume collections, so that we can make sure that you are applying for those things while you're here as a law student and all set and ready to achieve employment for after graduation, because that's the goal. Obviously, the first goal is to get into law school, to have a meaningful law school career, and then to get out with a job. And so I love what I do. I'm super excited to talk to all of you today a little bit about that. And yeah, look forward to telling you all a little bit more about what the employers are looking for in just a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and get started. So if you can see my screen, perfect. We're going to run through what all this is. So we are Regent University School of Law. We are a Christian law school located in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So usually, with you guys, y'all being in Florida, kind of go up north towards the middle a little bit, all the way on the coast. It's law school on the beach. I know y'all have beaches everywhere, so you're probably used to that, but we're one of the ones on the East Coast, which is super cool and really fun to have. As far as rankings, we are ranked number 94 in the nation. So we're in the top 100. We're actually the fastest rising law school in the nation right now, up 53 spots over the past 4 years. And continue to grow and, be strong and all that kind of stuff, right? So we'll get to this first slide here. The big top title says practice ready, purpose driven. That is the motto here at Regent. We want you to be able to come to law school, right? Get an understanding of kind of what you're wanting, get that practice ready, which comes from career services, right? And not just them, but also from the teachings that you're getting from the law school itself. And then purpose driven and really understanding your why behind your what to drive you into your law school career. We do have 5 core values that we kind of work through: Christ-centered community, truth, servant leadership, discipleship, and advocacy. They kind of seem similar and can kind of go together, but the one that, I guess the 2 big ones that we focus on are the Christ-centered community that we have, and then the servant leadership as well. This is our Dean Walton. It says, at Regent, we teach the lawyers we can be healers. We believe that the lawyer's greatest privilege is to walk with a client as they face a daunting challenge or serve them as they achieve a lifelong dream, right? That's what we're trying to do. We want to get you through the admissions process, and we're going to value you and evaluate your application based on not what your status will be, but who you're going to be and who you're going to become as an alumni, right? We want great representatives just like you guys want a great education. It's kind of a two-way street we're working with, right? So I'm going to move on. Going to get a little bit of stats of who we are as a law school. So we are tied second in the nation for professor accessibility, meaning our professors have an open door policy when it comes to interacting with students. And it's not just something we put on face. Obviously, we mean it because we're second in the nation for it, right? So that's part of that community aspect, that Christ-centered community that we're wanting to build and learn from, right? So a lot of, different law schools, you feel like there's this, you're thrown out into the ocean. It's just like sink or swim type of situations. We're not wanting to do that. And we're also not trying to hold your hand. We're wanting to challenge you just enough to make you a competent attorney, right? So that you can move on and be great for the service industry that you're going to be going into, right? We're also tied ninth in the nation for professor teaching. So we have professors who have degrees from Harvard, Yale, UVA, Georgetown, Chicago, where else? Princeton, William and Mary. So you're getting that like T14 education, right? From a community of people that really care about you and want to see you succeed. That's the Hannah Montana best of both worlds is what I keep telling everybody. So it's really cool that you're kind of trickling down and getting that same effect from them. Now, life at Regent is really fun. Like I said, the community aspect is something that we take very important. There's so much to do at Regent, right? So we have different centers. We have the Center for Global Justice. We have this Robertson Center for Constitutional Law. We now are going to be having the Randy Singer Center for Advocacy. We're building that up. And then we also have the Grace Legal Clinic. So a lot of experiential things that you can kind of work into to hone in on your skills that you're learning at Regent. But there's also so much more to that. We have our moot court competitions, our trial ad competition teams who are both believe in the top 5 of the nation right now, or at least in the top 10. I know moot court's in the top 5. So a lot of cool things that are going on. We also have different opportunities for service or informational in different communities. So we have, I helped found and build out the Intellectual Property, Entertainment, and Sports Law Society when I was in law school here at Regent. We have the Business Law Society, Women's Law Society. Think of a society, and there is one at Regent, probably. And if not, it's really easy to start one. So you can bring that type of diversity and mindset with you at Regent, and it's open for you, right? So lots of cool things there. I will say I have plenty of stories about my life at Regent and what that looked like. And I could talk for days about it because I truly loved it. There are not many people who can say that they loved law school and would go back tomorrow. And that is me because of Regent, straight up. All right, so different internships opportunities. I will run through these pretty quickly because Ms. Kathy is going to be talking a lot about that and what that looks like from an employer standpoint. But I'll talk about the opportunities we have at Regent just within the centers themselves, right? So we have our Center for Global Justice, which focuses on international and domestic human rights and public policy. So think like anti-human trafficking, anti-child exploitation, immigration, international law, all that's kind of housed underneath there. We're actually number 1 in the nation for human rights law. So this is kind of our bread and butter, right? Not meaning you have to want to be in these areas to go to law school here. I went to law school at Regent, wanted to be a baseball agent. Now I work in sports consulting. All right. So you can kind of do whatever. We just want you to be great at what you find your passion in. So they do a lot there. We have a lot of different connections in the Center for Global Justice through NCOSE, HTI, a lot of different fields, not only, domestically, but also internationally. We sent, I believe, 16 students internationally this summer with the different partners we have at the Center for Global Justice, right? And inside of that is the Human Trafficking Clinic, where you're able to, your 3rd year of law, go in and actually advocate for women who have been trafficked to get some of their records expunged based off the vacatur bill that was now in Virginia that we actually, fun fact, created because Lauren, the legal fellow, who's also one of my best friends from law school and my roommate currently, and while in law school too, her and the director, Meg Kelsey, worked together to build out the vacatur bill that has once passed in Virginia in 2015, but continue that through based off of some of the things that Lauren saw when she did her internship in Sarasota, Florida, with the different human trafficking courts and things that were working there. So we took a lot of what you have in Florida, moved it up to Virginia to kind of better the system, right? So we worked together in that. We also have the Robertson Center for Constitutional Law. It's more of a competitive internship. It actually started when I was in law school, so it's only about 5 or 6 years old. But it focuses on First Amendment rights, religious freedoms, and liberties. And kind of working that direction. We work with the American Center for Law and Justice. We work with Alliance Defending Freedom, taking on different cases that we get referred to from those areas to help them and help their team as they're working through these constitutional, litigations and things that are going on, right? It's a really competitive internship, but it's really cool because I had classmates of mine who are writers and editors on amicus briefs that were sent in. And I know some people say amicus briefs, and I don't like that, and I wasn't taught that way. So it's amicus briefs, in my opinion, opinion, that were sent into the Supreme Court while they were in law school. And they had opportunities to kind of be semi-published in that area that a lot of people don't really get, even in many years of practice, right? So you have those opportunities as well, and we're continuing to grow that and build that out to be something similar to that of the Center for Global Justice. The new one is the Randy Singer Center for Advocacy, and it is not on the website, and it's not up yet. We are still working on building that out, but we have the funding, and it's going to be started within this next year. And what it is going to really hone in on practical skills in litigation for public interest, for different moot courts. So that's where all of that's going to be funneled into to really get more practical skills as far as opening statements, closing statements, writing briefs, what this looks like, how to work with a jury. You're going to really get a lot of litigation from, experience from that. And now if you don't want to work in litigation, that's fine. I didn't either. I did arbitration, sports arbitrations and negotiations. That was my bread and butter. We actually go to nationals every single year at Regent Law through our ADR board for negotiations, mediations, and client counseling. So we're really good at that. We just opened this Randy Singer Center because one of our, the fellow pastor in the area, but also phenomenal attorney, who's a big Regent friend, does a lot for us. He's battling cancer right now. We wanted to honor him in that way, and he wanted to help kind of bring and build a legacy at Regent for that. And he has shown that through all of our wins that we've gotten from moot court and trial at. I'll just say that we're a bunch of winners over here. The other thing that we do have are different traditional roles, right? If you don't know, Virginia Beach is actually a very military heavy town. So we are well informed with military JAG and what that looks like. And we do a military Monday every Monday during the fall semester. Is that right, Kathy? I think so. And so we're really well informed in that in the different district courts, Virginia Supreme Courts, and other local, law firms are ranging from all sizes, but not just local. We're a national law school, right? So we have alumni in all 50 states. I personally know and went to school with those who are in Alaska. Don't ask me why they're there, but they are, and I know them, and so it's great stuff. So the connection we have is really wide for people. And if you're wanting to go back to Florida, right? If you're from Florida, wanting to go back to Florida after law school, Florida is actually one of our feeder schools. If we were to say which ones we are, Florida is one of ours. We are very well versed in Florida in different, courtrooms and in law firms and law practice down there as well. So just don't think that whole mindset of I have to go to law school where I'm going to practice. That's not the case anymore, especially not at Regent. Our connection is wide. Right. I'll get into the employment bar passage. Those are going to change slightly, but in the positive for next year, right? So my year, we had a 95% employed within 10 months of graduation. I believe it's up to 97 overall of an employment rate at Regent. In 2023, we had a 99% bar passage rate, but that doesn't mean that was the only time, right? But historically, we have between a 90 to 95% first-time bar passage rate. So without you even coming to law school right here at Regent, you have a really good chance of getting a job and a really good chance of passing the bar just by attending Regent, right? That's something that you should be asking all law schools. Fun fact, outside of my position, that's something you should be looking into, right? And we do really well in the Virginia bar exam as well. The other thing is this practice distribution, kind of where we're at and how we're located, where we usually send people. We're not typical on any certain area of we're going to only give you federal clerkships and we're going to be really heavy in this. We're actually tied 33rd in the nation for federal clerkships. I'll pull that little plug. But wherever you want to go, we want that for you, right? We want whatever God's calling you to and whatever industry he's calling you to be able to, work in that area, right? That's what we're wanting from you as well. Now we're getting into the applying to law school. There are some slides I'm going to get to where that's going to be a one-on-one conversation that I'd love to have with you about where you're at in your journey and what's going on. A lot of this is fact-based and not just the rule and standard, right? If I was talking to a bunch of high schoolers going into college, some of these slides would apply more to them than they would to you. But I'd love to chat and hang out and talk with y'all about that later. So starting the process, obviously you need your bachelor's degree. If you're in law school at UCF, or not law school, but in undergrad at UCF, you're working in that. All right. So that means you got to have your bachelor's degree in something. It doesn't have to be anything. There's a myth it has to be poli-sci. Honestly, that's not true at all. So don't feel like you have to do that. Now, if you are in poli-sci, that's totally fine. It's okay. We can do anything. I graduated my undergrad in business administration with a double minor in marketing and accounting. I was going to go be an accountant. The Lord said otherwise. Okay, we're all good here, right? So the other thing is when you're looking at law schools, be mindful of the medians. So our 2024 medians are not the same as they are right now. We're actually at a 150, it's a 158 moving upwards to a 159 based off of where we're at right now in the cycle, and a 368 median GPA. The only reason why these graphics are here because I could not figure out how to edit them, and I'm waiting to get that fixed, all right? So bear with me, I'm working on fixing this for the slides themselves, right? So when you're looking at law schools, this is what you're going to be, right? This is not a I have to meet these medians in order to get in, right? It is I'm going to meet these medians to utilize and take advantage of the scholarship opportunity and potential that there are, right? The higher you can get, the more towards you can get towards the median and above the median, the better chance you have of not only getting in, but also getting a really great scholarship. And that kind of works with all law schools, but I'm specifically talking at Regent, okay? At Regent, 97% of our law students are on some type of financial aid, whether that's scholarships, grants, loans, things are going on. A majority of them are scholarships, though, right? And we are a rolling admissions when it comes to deadlines. So we start our application on September 1. You can start submitting them as soon as September 1 happens. And then we close our class officially, right, at the end of July 31st. But it really depends on the year and if we have the seats available. So I know some law schools don't start admitting and looking at applications until March. All right, so that's something to look into and things to look out for when you're looking at that stuff. By March, we already have finished our early admissions program and working on filling out our seat after that, right? So you got to start looking at different timelines for what that looks like, and you can call any admissions office and they should be able to tell you all that information. All right, this is where I'm talking about this may or may not apply to you, okay? This is the timeline to law school. This is if I were talking to a senior in high school, this is kind of what I would look into. Obviously, it'll depend on where you're at in undergrad and what all kind of information you're going to need. Obviously by junior year, creating an LSAC account, doing LSAT prep. I like to reserve this is a thing you can do, right? But if you want a more personalized, what should I do? Shoot me an email and we can walk through where you're at, what the process looks like, and what is best for you, not just at Regent, but just from like someone who's done it, who's now working in it and can kind of help you and guide you, right? So we're not going to walk through this one. But we're going to talk about law school application requirements because this is all pretty standard for law school. Some of them have a little bit of different nuances, but a majority of them are the same, right? You're going to have your application for admissions. You can find that through LSAC, which is the same way and place that you will sign up for the LSAT account, right? You'll have an application fee. If you call any law school and ask for an application fee waiver, they'll probably give it to you. I know we will give you one. If you shoot me an email and tell me how much fun you had at my presentation, I'll 100% give you one, right? So that's something that goes there, but look out for those different fees and waivers and things that are going on because applying to law school can get expensive if you're just kind of throwing stuff out there, right? The other thing is your official transcripts. I don't just need those from UCF. I'm going to need those from every other school that you've attended as far as a graduate program. So any type of let's say you did some college work while you were in high school. I'm going to need all of those. If you went to community college before that, I'm going to need those transcripts. If you transferred into UCF from another undergrad, I'm going to need those transcripts, right? We're looking at all of it. When law school applications and you're looking at from an admission standpoint, we look at the whole of you. So it's a holistic approach. We're not just looking at your LSAT and your GPA. We're going to look at everything and not just your GPA. We're going to look at your major, what you got in those classes. Did you, withdraw from a bunch of them? If you did, why? Right? So we're going to look at everything that goes into it because that is the type of person that we're going to bring on as an alumni, right? That's that whole process of admissions to alumni. We're working that entire place from the very get-go of the application. The other one is your LSAT score. Some schools do GREs or don't have the LSAT. That's not us. We require an LSAT, so you must take it. I'm so sorry. The other one is letter of recommendations. We require one to complete. One, is like it'll complete it, right? 2 is really good. You can submit up to 4. And to be honest, you can submit up to 6 if you wanted to. My team, if you take the time to submit an application to us, my team will read that entirely. If not one person, at least 2 or 3, right, are going to read your entire application fully. So we get, it's the whole like courtesy of like, if you're going to send us an application, if you're going to take that time, we're going to take the time to read through it thoroughly. So we highly recommend you can include a spiritual recommendation. You don't have to, it's totally okay if you don't. When it comes to letter recommendations, the big tip I like to tell people is don't just give me a a celebrity name, right? Don't just give me a big judge name, because I don't care who that judge is. I care who you are. You're the one going to law school. So I want to know about you, right? I want to know your work ethic. I want to know what your professors are saying about you. I want to know what your supervisors are saying about you. I want to know, I don't care that some delegate who can say it's a family friend. That's great, but they don't know what you were like in school or what you're like in practice, right? We want to get to know you and understand you better. So we actually, like for me, when I was submitting applications to law school, I used my athletic director because I played basketball in college. So I used him. I used a mentor and, professor that I adored. She wasn't even a business person, right? She was a different class, but I did really well in that class. One of them was my English professor. I was a business major, guys. It was my English professor because those are the skills necessary for law school. He could talk about my work ethic. He could talk about my writing skills, right? He could talk about certain things that were necessary for law school from a deeper level than just, yeah, I had her in class and she was great, right? So we're looking for those better understandings of who you are, because the more that committee knows who you are, the easier it is for us to say yes, right? It's one of those situations. The other one is the personal statement, and I didn't put on here a resume. You do need your resume as well, but a lot of people like to say the resume and personal statement and use them together. So they like to regurgitate their resume onto their personal statement. Please don't do that. That's the whole reason why we gave you the resume section, right? Keep your accolades on your resume. That's what it's for. The personal statement is to get to know your why behind your what, right? It's the who you are. It's the what's driving you to law school. So for me, mine was I wanted to be an advocate for athletes, right? I wanted to be there for someone because I've been through the depths of these things and I didn't get what I didn't feel like I had a say or a voice and no one to stand up for me. So I was going to be what I didn't have, right? That was the way that I wanted to go about going to law school. That was my why behind the what. That's what committee wants to see, right? They're wanting to see the heart of you, right? Your why. So those are different law school applications. I know that some people like to tailor their application or their resume to law school. I personally like to see it all, right? It's really great that you're getting, and a lot of this is one question I get about, what can I do as far as my resume to stand out? I think, and a lot of people like to say it's, law types of internships. At least for me and at least at Regent, like that's great, and it's good for you to network and get to know people and get to know the field of law you want to practice in and kind of get some experiential for that. But as far as like wanting that for law school, that's not something we really look for, right? We're going to look for different, like, did you work a job while going to law school or going to undergrad, right? Did you, have some experience, doing some service industries? Were you an athlete, right? Like, what we're looking for is like discipline, motivation, time management skills, communication skills. That's huge. I'm looking for that. Customer service skills. If you don't realize, the law is a service industry, right? Like, you're not providing something, but you're other than a service, like you're not giving them a product. It's a service industry. If you don't work well with people, maybe law school's not for you. It's one of those situations like maybe we should take a different track, because this is a people-oriented service first industry, no matter where you're going to be working at, whether it's business law, whether it's in the prosecutor's office, whether it's, working somewhere else, right? Like doing the sports stuff. It's all about service to the people. So having those communication skills is huge, that a lot of people think are like minor skills that are actually major pointers in my book. All right, and then we're going to look into the 3+3 program. A lot of schools have that. I would love to have one with UCF, so if you know anybody or know the pre-law advisor, send them my direction. Essentially, what it is you can finish your undergrad. It's taking your last year of undergrad and making it your first year of law school. So instead of doing law school and undergrad in 7 years, or a part-time program where you're doing like 8 years, you're doing it in 6, right? So you have that opportunity as well. It's up to you whether or not you want to take that in your path. You're more than welcome to talk with me about that. But yeah, we don't have one with UCF, but I'd love to get one. So shoot me an email about that. And then this is your lovely crew. Oh my gosh, these are all the people you're going to be talking to on my team. So we've got Dean Walton. It says interim dean here. I haven't edited that. He's actually the dean of the law school. He's super cool, super fun, from Philly. If you have his class, it's 8 a.m. and he screams without a microphone and it's wonderful, right? He's super high energy. We've got our director, Preston Braswell. Then you got me, lovely me. I'm the face. He's the brain, right? We kind of of work that direction. We've got Mark. Any type of communications you're getting from us, it's usually like a standardized communication. It's usually Mark. So please don't unsubscribe because this is the face of the person that you are unsubscribing to. So just remember that. Then we've got James and Star. These are your admissions counselors and financial aid counselors. So any questions, they're kind of your mediator between me and committee, right? So it's like you, James and Star are going to be like your go-to advocates. They're going to report to me. I'm your go-to advocate, and then we send you off to committee, and they're the final bosses, right? So that's kind of how it works in between. And then Miss Cindy, she is our admissions coordinator. She's the one who runs all of our visits and things that are going on. Any emails you have, some of the initial phone calls you'll have will be with Miss Cindy. But yeah, so that is us, and I'll pass this over to Miss Kathy to talk more about resume building and how you can work from undergrad to law school and what that looks like and what employers are actually looking for.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
No
And a
problem.
lot of what Abby's talking about really does apply to the employers as well. I was listening to some of the things that she was talking about. So I do have some slides.
Just stop sharing and then let you share.
Oh,
We
I
can see
stopped
it now.
sharing?
I
We can see
did,
it now.
but we can see yours. You're good.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
So some of these I might actually just kind of breeze down through because, hold on one second. Looks like mine's, I don't know. It's not, I don't think, oh, there we go. Okay, okay. So is it advancing? Are the slides advancing?
It's still on the becoming a competitive law school applicant slide.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're still on the first one.
Maybe exiting out and going back in.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, but that's okay. I can just kind of go down through and let you know what we're talking about. So the I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's working now.
Okay, so the reason I'm on here, I work in career services. And so, as Abby was saying, we had a 95% employment rate prior. Now, this year, and this is brand new information that we are reporting to the ABA, we have a 97% employment rate, which is very high. Last year, that put us in the top 50 law schools. And so, we're excited to see where this will put us this year. Super high. And we had a judicial clerkship rate of 25%, which is very high as well. I'm sure you all have talked about a lot of this to different law schools as you're starting to explore law school opportunities and everything. So what I want to talk a little bit about is what we talked a little bit about what law schools are looking for. And so I'm just going to skip ahead a tiny bit and talk a little bit about career services. So beginning your first year as a law student, we start working with you hand in hand on your internship search because we want to make sure that you're completing internships so that you can get out there and see what you like and what you don't like. If you see yourself in a courtroom, if you don't see yourself in a courtroom, if you're interested in family law or sports law, like Abby was interested in, or being a public defender or prosecutor, there's so many different areas of law. And we want to make sure that you're getting out there and doing internships and such so that you can see what's out there and what your interests really end up being. A lot of students complete internships during the summers, but then a lot of them also complete internships during the school year as well, especially during 2L and 3L years. So you have plenty of opportunities to explore different areas of law. You definitely do not have to know what type of law you're interested in right now as you're exploring. A lot of them you probably haven't heard of yet. And one other misconception that Abby talked about this with the application. Some law students I get coming to our office in the first couple months, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have a legal internship." And we're like, "No, that's completely fine. A lot of people don't have a legal internship." And that is completely fine. There's some people that do, like maybe 5% or something like that, just because maybe they worked in a law firm or were a paralegal before, or maybe their family had a law firm or something like that. But that is definitely not necessary. We have had students that have worked in restaurants before, which actually employers really like because one of the things that you're doing as an attorney is having to build a rapport quickly with a client or with somebody in the community that you're working with. And by working at a restaurant or something like that, that is one of those things that you're having to do quickly as well, like a server or a hostess or host or something like that. So there are so many transferable skills that come from positions like that. I had a guy that worked as a at a funeral home where he was going and getting the bodies, which is kind of interesting. I was interested to know more about that. But one of the things that employers liked about that is he was going and kind of being the first person to see people at one of the worst days in their life, losing a loved one, and having to handle that, where he was trusted and just with emotional intelligence and things like that. Those are positions, really anything that you can pull transferable skills from, is what an employer is really looking for. Um, Let me just see. So once you're actually at law school, the employer is going to look at what types of things you're getting involved in here at campus. And one of those things, since I know I'm talking to undergrad students right now, one of the things that they also look for is kind of what you've been doing in undergrad. So if you're involved, maybe you're writing a thesis that might come up in an interview, or maybe you're involved in some student activities, even fraternities or sororities, things like that. I don't want anyone to be scared away with that. A lot of great things come from that, like public service or philanthropy, things like that. Or if maybe you're involved in your student government. So try to think about this, especially if you're not maybe a senior right now getting ready to graduate, but prior to that, getting involved with some student activities that might be, beneficial for you as a law student, for employers as well. But that is something that you can also get involved here at law school with. We have a ton of organizations that you can get involved in. Research and academics, there's law review, there are other journals, things like that that you can get involved in as well. Another thing that employers really like to see is community service work, and that can be with anything. I have a law student right now who was a basketball coach prior to coming to law school. So she was just coaching out in the community, and the employers love that because she's out there in the community being involved and all of that. And that's a great way for you to meet members of the community. So that's something important. It doesn't have to be a legal organization or something like that. Next, student organizations, I talked a little bit about that. You can do that here at Regent or even in undergrad as well. Employers love to see that. Interest in the area. So employers like to know that you're interested in certain areas. Something that you can do now or even in the summers is take time to get to know a couple of attorneys. It's not like you have to go and work there or something like that. But if you're kind of exploring a little bit or thinking about it, you may know some attorneys, or maybe your family has some connections. And even if they don't, you can contact attorneys in your area and just say, hey, could I come over and do an informational interview? I'd love to hear what it looks like to be an attorney in your field. Could I come over and have coffee with you or something like that? And attorneys are always very helpful when it comes to that. They love to share information and pour into the next generation of attorneys. So that's something that you can do, especially if you're kind of thinking, okay, do I want to go to law school? Do I have certain areas that I might be more interested in or not? But there are so many different areas of law to practice. And one thing that we do here at Regent, we have, like Abby said, we do the Military Mondays, but we also have a lot of career programs where we bring in attorneys from all different areas. We even Zoom in attorneys from different areas of the country, things like that, so that you can hear about different things that our attorneys are doing as you're kind of exploring that when you're here at law school. All right, so common mistakes, just as you're, thinking about applying for internships, things like that, are just kind of being a little bit passive, maybe waiting too long to apply, things like that. A lot of it is very similar to applying to law school, making sure that the employer gets to know who you are, what your interests are, why you're interested in being there, rather than taking a passive approach where you're just sending your resume to everybody and not tailoring it, or not tailoring your cover letter, or like Abby said, throwing everything in your resume into a cover letter and just kind of re-saying it in a narrative form. They don't want to see that. They want to get to know a little bit about you and a little bit about what you want to do. So just a little bit, some of this Abby already covered a little bit. So I just want to go down to, yeah, just kind of the takeaway with this part of it is just really thinking about, knowing that you don't have to be involved in everything. Think about breadth over, like getting more deeply involved in, say, a student activity or something like that, rather than being involved in everything. And just kind of, being well-rounded. A lot of employers say to us when they're interviewing a student, they want to, you don't have to have the best grades. You don't have to have the best LSAT score or something like that when you're applying to employers. However, they want to make sure that you're eager to learn, that you are a self-starter, you're motivated and all of that. I know law schools probably love to see that too. And then also, just that you're somebody that they can talk to. They say this all the time. We want to hire somebody that we want working down the hall from us or that we could have lunch with and, has interest outside of just law. So that's where, they want to get to know a little bit about who you are. So, having those soft skills, if maybe you're more introverted by nature, I would encourage you to get involved with things that kind of stretch you a little bit. And there are different areas of law that are more for extroverts and in areas that are more for introverts. So that's okay too. But just being able to talk to people and make a good impression and things like that, that's something that you can do as an undergrad student, just kind of pushing yourself in that way, whether it's getting involved in like a debate club or something like that, or even just kind of going to the networking things that are on campus, or getting involved with doing some of those informational interviews where you're reaching out to attorneys, things like that. Any of that will really help you with that. And just, you know, keep going with the things that you're doing. As far as if you're interested in golf or something like that, that's something that a legal employer, they might say, okay, at an interview, that's the only thing we talked about because the interviewer also had an interest in golf or something like that. So it doesn't have to just be law or legal related. There can be all different areas. I mean, it might be basketball, things like that. So that's pretty much my spiel. We do help you from the beginning. We have a lot of employers that hire. We have all different areas of law. You may find that some law schools are like, okay, 80% of our students are going into large firms or certain areas. We are not like that. We want to find out what your calling is. We want to work with you, develop that plan, and really find out what it is that makes you tick, what makes you interested in practice law. And we want you to end up being in the area that you want to practice when you graduate. And we want to take those steps along with you the entire time that you're here to help you get where you want to be after you graduate. We want to follow your agenda with that. We don't have our own agenda where we, want to be able to say a certain percent goes to this area or that area. Our areas are very broken down as far as all different types of areas. We have students that go into public interest. We have ones that go into government, firms, all different sizes of law firms, judicial clerkships, all of that. So all types of areas of law. So make sure that that's something that you look for as you are considering law schools as well. But I will see if Abby has anything to add about any of this, or if you all have any questions for us.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Kathy. That was really great. And the Career Services Department does a really good job at Regent. Well, I can attest to this because I was there, of just making sure that whatever you want, they're going to spread their network wide to figure out what it is that you want to do and help you get into that area of law. So long as like you tell them what you want, right? That's the biggest issue is a lot of people just assume that we know what you want to do. We have no idea. And that's the same thing when it comes to your applications too, right? Leave nothing to assumption up to committee because they're always going to assume the worst, right? So if you have a semester of withdrawals, tell us why, right? If you can, if you feel comfortable doing that, because we're just going to assume that you couldn't handle those classes or it was something hard or you flunked out or like we're going to assume the worst, right? Because we don't know. And you as an attorney are just going to learn this. You're going to assume the worst because that's just easier than assuming the best, right? To kind of get an understanding. So the less you can leave to assumption for committee as far as like, LSAT explanations or GPA explanations, or when it comes to your resume, right? Like we want to see it all because it makes it easier for us to say yes when we see everything versus like hiding it and trying to figure out, are they like this? Are they not like this? I don't know. But yeah, so we've got another like 20-ish minutes or so if you want for questions. You can type them in the chat if you want to like shout them out, you can. Um, I'm a talker. I'm not really a typer, so we can do that. That was one of my issues in law school. But I do see I have a question mentioning the sports consulting firm. How does it differentiate from a sports agency? Are you tending to represent athletes at the collegiate and professional level? At the beginning, since I just started it, and the idea and my passion is more of an educational standpoint. So the consulting agency is going to be working through NIL education, college athletics, and what that all entails. So like transferring or your eligibility and what that looks like, NIL stuff for it's mostly for like mid-major D1s, D2s, D3s, NII, and high school athletes and institutions to kind of work them together into that. And then my goal is to potentially make that into an agency. But right now we're starting out with NIL education because I'm the most passionate about that and feel like that's the one thing that people are missing out on. So that is kind of how it differentiates. And then we do marketing and branding strategies as well. That was one of my undergraduate degrees. So I'm using all my degrees together in one to kind of help athletes themselves and be an advocate for athletes, like I said in my personal statement, just different forms. So any other questions from anybody? If not, we can sit in awkward silence for a little bit.
Students, you can feel free, like she said, to unmute, or you can put it into the chat. I know sometimes in the past we've had some questions about students who aren't able, or they find out they want to do law later on in their application process, so they don't have as many experiences that are necessarily legal. Do you guys
Right.
have any recommendations for how to tie in experiences like volunteering experiences that might be like at charities or other things to
Yeah.
law?
1000%. It doesn't, that's the one thing is you don't have to have the experiences of law prior to law school, right? We will give those to you. That's what Miss Kathy was saying about prior, like in her speech, is that, or in her presentation, is that we were going to provide those for you. So you don't have to come in with that. Now, we're recommended in me recommending it is if you can shadow attorneys or kind of figure out what you want, it's a little bit easier as you go into law school to discern what area of law you want to practice in, but it's not a necessary thing to do, right? I worked at, Enterprise Rent-A-Car prior to law school as one of my internships because it was a business internship that I was working in, right? So, and that was super helpful because it gave me customer service. I got to see people also, work with people in a service industry that is a lot of physical labor. So it was discipline and motivation and getting out there, right? So that helps as well. I really think when it comes to the experiences you want, diving into where you want to be is more helpful than diving into a legal standpoint, right? It's kind of getting those different soft skills. I do see we have a question about the benefits of more letters of recommendations as are just the required amount. This is going to vary by law schools, so please reach out to the law schools you're applying to and their admissions counselors and see what they have to say. For us, it helps us understand better, right, who you are. So as long as they're quality letter of recommendations and like really good letter of recommendations, I'm not mad about getting more, right? Because the more that you can reiterate how good of a student you are, how hard of a worker you are, how well you're doing in these classes, the more that, like I said, the easier it is for us to be like, wow, these are really good letter of recommendations. They are really advocating for this person. This makes it an easier yes, right? As far as political experiences, again, if that's the area of law you want to go into, I think that's great, at least at Regent, for you to have that on your resume to show some type of interest, right? So if for political experience, it would help us like, okay, maybe they're wanting to go to the Constitutional Law Center and they're going to work in this direction with federal clerkship. So we have an idea of like why you're wanting to do it, but it's not like you have to have it, right? It's not, we're going to be looking at all the different skills that you require over your lifetime, whether it's volunteering or working, while going to undergrad in the service industry, right? Or at different internships or jobs or things like that. We're going to look at all those skills put together, not just one experience into that. So I hope that answers your question as far as political experience. It's helpful if that's what you want to go into. But if you're not wanting to go into politics at all, and you're just doing it, but like it gives you different skills, we look at those skills. But I would say focus on what you want to do, not what's going to benefit you, because at the end of the day, it's still going to benefit you, right? So it's better to do what you want to do than what everybody's telling you to do. And then is there a significant difference between, oops, oh no, I lost it. Between shadowing an attorney versus an internship. So shadowing an attorney versus an internship, one obviously is working for them. The other one is just kind of following their day to day, getting an idea. We differentiate and then like, oh, okay, so they've seen attorney work, right? Versus an internship is they can actually, provide. You've worked for an attorney, right? So you've had working experience. They can, if we needed to call upon them to say, hey, what were they like working for you? That's another thing. So I think shadowing is more of a benefit for you than it is a benefit for your application versus interning if you can, is probably better all for your application purposes so we can call upon them if necessary. And if that makes any sense, right? So shadowing is more for you, interning is more for your application and for you, right? Have you helped any students personally from your law program in universities? Uh, breaking into, wait, just sports industry becoming a sports agent. So I'm actually have 3 or 4 interns right now for my program, and so I'm helping them. I actually did a lot of networking in law school. It's one of my favorite things to do. I like talking to people, and I like doing like the networking stuff. Miss Kathy can let you know I was like the networker. I like being a super connector, so I like connecting all of my areas of life together. So when it came to different law students personally, yeah, I did. And kind of working in that area, I founded the sports, entertainment. I'm bringing in, the networks. I'm calling on people. I'm cold calling and cold emailing different attorneys to talk with them to see if they'll come and guest speak, to see if they'll help us out. I'm sending all of, especially now that I'm teaching in this area and kind of building it out, every internship that I find on LinkedIn, I'm sending it to my interns and the people that I know are interested in sports law. I'm sending them different my contacts that are looking, and hey, this person's actually had another student from another law school submit his resume over to me because we met at the Tulane baseball arbitration competition. He was from George Mason. He's like, Abby, I see you all the time on LinkedIn reposting different stuff. He's like, I know you got a wide network. Do you know anyone in golf in Florida? And I said, not in Florida, but Ohio. And I'm sure he knows someone in Florida. So let me get you connected, right? So I'm constantly working in that area. And I love it actually. So I have helped students in that program in universities and going to continue to do that as we build out.
All right, well, thank you. Students, do you have any other questions? I went ahead and put our post-event survey in the chat if you guys can have a chance to fill that out. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you both so much for coming.